Well, welcome back to our S.O.A.P videos. Last week we finished the book of Isaiah, or at least the last part of it.
Right.
We didn't read the whole thing. For the next 5 weeks, now that we're past Thanksgiving, we're looking into Christmas. So for the next 5 weeks, we are going to consider different voices of Christmas.
Right.
Now,
cool.
This does go along with our message series this year.
Right.
We don't always do S.O.A.P and message series together.
Right. And even with this, we kind of want to do it different.
We're going to offset it a little bit, right? Yeah. So during the Sunday messages, we're going to look at some of the, shall we say, the quieter voices, the less shorter, less maybe well-known voices of Christmas. More time in the Old Testament, some of the prophecies maybe.
Yeah, so ones that we don't normally consider as part of the Christmas story.
Christmas story, right.
And where we have the time to do it.
Right.
Spend
some time on Sunday mornings. Our videos here are supposed to be a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
So we'll cover the more well-known ones here.
Right.
And maybe try to bring out some things that interesting facts.
Yeah, give some people to think about.
A little bit of background maybe.
Yeah. Well, that also means if we're going to do 5 weeks here, the Christmas story really isn't that big. Right? So we're going to be covering the same story just from different angles.
Right. Yeah. Because, for instance, if we talk, like we're going to talk in this video about Mary, well, I think she pretty much touches on every part of the story. So any other voices are going to have to interact with hers a little bit. And so we'll have to try to...
Right. So from a S.O.A.P card standpoint, we're just going to have everybody read straight through.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll be reading through the Christmas story. So maybe we're going to be talking about things with Mary that they haven't read yet, or they're not going to read this week. Right. So it's going to be a little different than previous S.O.A.P weeks.
You can look at it sort of like an Advent season, the weeks leading up to the actual Christmas event itself. Right. And as you're reading through the Christmas story, as you're reading through some of these other passages that we'll bring in together, and just try to hit these highlights.
Yeah. All right.
It's not that we don't know the story.
Right.
Most people know it really well. Comes around every year.
Yep. But and that is the cool point, right? But so finding something new is kind of the exciting part of it.
Yeah, and it's hard to find something new, but So this, and maybe we do talk about something new that you've never heard before. Maybe it's just a good reminder, good refresher. This time of year, and hopefully these next several weeks will help keep us in the proper attitude of Christmas, and especially with COVID this year and everything, it's frustration, and the families aren't gathering together quite as much, depending on what you can and can't do. So maybe this will be a nice, I don't know.
Yeah, reminder or anchor or getting back. Well, so we're going to be covering really the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Right.
How about we alternate?
Sure.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, so
you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with Matthew. And again, we're focusing on Mary with this time and the Christmas story. And that doesn't mean just the birth of Jesus, but some of it's going to be some pre-birth things, and then some even post too. That's kind of all in there.
Usually included in the
kind of fair game in there.
Yeah.
So from the story in Matthew, when we're reading in Matthew starts out with Mary and Joseph's engagement. So that's kind of a cool part in there, and then Joseph finds out that Mary's pregnant. Conceived through the Holy Spirit, and Joseph intends to divorce her. Privately, which when we get to Joseph's story, we'll talk about that more. And an angel appears to him in a dream, and they end up getting married. Okay, we know that, we know all that, right. And then in Matthew, Jesus is born, and it's half a sentence.
Yeah, that's all
in Matthew, and it says until she gave birth to a son, who he named Jesus.
Yep.
So not a whole lot there, which is kind of amazing because we think of this whole story and really all the details we have. Matthew doesn't gloss over it, but that's kind of where he's at.
Right.
Yeah. So what does Mark say about the gospel, or about the birth of Jesus?
Nothing at all. I like this alternating thing. Mark completely skips. The first verse of Mark is the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and he goes straight into his ministry, into his baptism. John the Baptist is right there in the first couple of verses, and boom, he just moves on.
Right.
Nothing about his birth, his anything.
Right. Okay.
So, what does Luke say?
All right, we'll go to Luke. By the way, on Matthew, I skipped 2 parts too. I skipped the wise men coming and them escaping to Egypt too.
Which technically is, Jesus had to have been, and we can talk about this in another video, but Jesus had to have been at least 18 months, I would think. And I've got reasons for that, before the wise men come. So we'll talk about. I think we'll talk about that in a different video.
So Luke is where we get the main part of what, at least I consider, the Christmas story in there, and the detail in there. So it does start before Jesus, right? It starts with really the birth of John the Baptist. He wasn't named John the Baptist at that point in time. But it's the pre-story.
Yeah, even before John was even conceived.
Yeah, right. So we have Zechariah and Elizabeth, and an angel visits. Zechariah gets in trouble. All that kind of fun stuff.
Zechariah gets in trouble.
He does get in trouble. And then 6 months into Elizabeth's pregnancy, Mary's visited by an angel.
Yeah.
Mary goes to visit Elizabeth. John is born. Mary and Joseph go to Nazareth. From Nazareth in Galilee up to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
For the birth, because he was the line of David. It's always got to be in there.
Because there was the house and lineage of David, right? Yeah.
Yep. So the birth in the manger is there. Shepherds are visiting. Jesus is presented at the temple. There's Simeon and Anna. There's an interaction with that. So that's all in Luke. And it is. Luke, a lot of stuff. And also, a lot of detail. Or made them out of our detail.
What are the parts, where does Mary really shine in Luke, though?
Mary shining in Luke.
Like, I think specifically the parts about Mary in Luke.
A couple. She's visited by an angel.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Then she also, when she visits Elizabeth, Elizabeth brings up what's going to happen to her too. And then there's a part in Mary's where what does she call it? Mary's Hymn of Praise.
Yes.
The title in there that gives a lot of detail. And I think that's really interesting too. So you want me to hit this now, or just talk about John?
We can talk about John. Okay. So John doesn't have anything either. So
so we're done with the gospel of John.
We're done with John. No, actually, that's not quite true, because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and everything, and He created everything in the beginning, and there was nothing that was created that was not created by Him. And so we actually have, I like to call him the pre-Jesus, right? Because Jesus has a fixed entrance into creation, into humanity. He was conceived of the Holy Spirit, right? But the eternal Son of God, the second person of the Godhead, the second person of the Trinity, existed all the way back in eternity past. And he took on, Paul says in Philippians 2, took on a human nature. And so he did exist pre-Jesus, but Jesus himself, like who we know, did not exist in the past, right? So the Christmas part of what we consider the Christmas part is John 1:14, where the Word became flesh, and dwelt among us, right? And that's John's part of the Christmas story. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us.
Which isn't bad. I mean, the Gospels take different focuses, and Jesus' birth, although incredibly important, wasn't part of the story. It had already been told.
Well, and because John's purpose was to present his deity more than his humanity. Mark's purpose was to present him as a servant, not as anybody really.
Yeah, so nobody cares when a servant is born.
Yeah. So both of them really start with his ministry. Actually, John, before that, so you got Matthew and Luke, and I got Mark and John.
Yeah, it's funny how that worked out.
I like that. So then focusing on Mary then specifically, right? We want to talk about Mary. What are some of those things where she really, I mean, her voice is really heard?
Well, I going through this again, one of the things I did was just did a word search on Mary in the Bible, and there's literally hundreds of different ways you can do that online now. I happen to use the Net Bible Lumina. You just put in Mary in the search and it comes back, and it's almost too easy, right? Yeah. So you think you do all this work and you really haven't done anything.
But you still have to filter through it. You still have to read through it. I mean, there's still a lot of work there.
But one of the things I noticed that I don't think gets talked about a lot is the maturity level of Mary. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the spiritual maturity and also the physical maturity too. She's probably a young girl, and we don't know. Yeah. But
mid to late teens, maybe.
Yep. Some think even younger. And then a lot of people think Joseph is a lot older. And again, we don't know how old. Yeah. And a lot of people have a problem with that in today's world. But I try to think about it as the man needs to be established before he can go back and marry a wife or provide for a wife. Yeah. And there's stability there that wouldn't be with a younger couple. And we see that in today's world.
Absolutely.
Kids getting married too young. Yeah. And they're not ready for it.
There's probably some of that we can even get into a little bit more detail in Joseph's life, the little bit that we know, in a future video too.
Right. So my quote proof or for the maturity is in a number of places. Mary says things that you wouldn't expect from a teenager. Yeah. Mary's visited by an angel. So in Luke chapter 1, verse 28, an angel came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." And like always, anytime anybody is visited by an angel, we say, they say, "Do not be afraid."
Do not be afraid, right?
Yeah. And Mary comes back with...
Well, but the angel didn't say that in this one.
Oh, sorry. Yep, the angel didn't say that, right? He didn't lead with that.
Right.
So...
She should be afraid.
There's a maturity. There's kind of a maturity because he didn't need to.
Yeah.
In there, which I think is awesome.
It's funny though that he brings it up later, but it's not the don't be afraid because I popped in, but it's don't be afraid because of what I'm about to drop on you.
Yeah. And in fact, she was greatly troubled. Hearing that, and so he it seems like he tries to hey don't.
I think he forgot his line. What really happened, he's like, he hasn't popped in on somebody for a long time now, right? Zacharias, he's sort of rusty. It's been a long time. He's like, oh.
But see, I take that as I take it more as the maturity standpoint, and really a spiritual maturity. Yeah. I mean, getting visited by an angel.
Yeah.
And and it's condensed what we see here. Then also when Mary is at Elizabeth, there's that hymn of praise. She says, "All generations will call me blessed."
Yeah.
Which definitely has happened, but again, a young girl accepting that and accepting that responsibility of it's just not me in my life, it's just not me with a husband, the whole world forever. Yeah. I mean, that's a heavy burden to place on somebody, and she seems to have accepted it.
You know what would be a great study is Mary's family life.
Yeah.
Her parents, her home life.
Yep.
That we have
right.
I mean, the study is about that deep because there has zero information. But how did she get to this point? Right. Especially in a culture where the girls did not typically go to school. She at least not the rabbi school. She would have gone maybe for a couple of years. Everything that she knew, she heard from home.
Yeah, and probably
friends,
her father.
Her father. Whatever.
Yep,
so. Her influence to get to this point that you're talking about spiritually had to have come from home. Maybe some rabbi friends, some friends of the family. But I mean, she wasn't in rabbi school,
right? But yet she must have heard about the Messiah.
Oh yeah,
and had an understanding about it.
Yeah,
and again, that's why I'm saying maturity level.
Yeah,
the shepherds. Yeah, when the shepherds come. I'm thinking from a guy standpoint, when I was a teenager, if somebody said, "Hey, you're going to be part of making the Messiah," wealth and honor and glory. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But Mary understood that there might be more to it than that. And a number, or at least twice, she pondered in her heart what it might mean.
Yeah.
She did it then, and she had a similar foreshadowing when she was talking with Anna and Simeon.
Yeah.
And then again when a little bit later in life, when Jesus gets left at the temple and they come back, hey, where'd you think I'd be? I'd be in my Father's house.
Yeah.
But his mother kept all these things in her heart.
Yeah. She seems very thoughtful. And,
exactly.
And maybe not wise beyond her years, but at least, like I said, pondering and thinking over these things and meditating on them and wondering what they could mean.
Yep. I kind of see this coming together, and maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Only so much there.
But in John 2, which is not part of the story, Jesus' first miracle, I want to read this through and then talk about it. So John chapter 2, verse 2. Now on the third day there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the wedding. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no wine left." And Jesus replied, "Woman, why are you saying this to me? My time has not yet come." His mother told the servants, "Whatever he tells you to do, do it." and like you said, we have this Jewish mother, and they're at a wedding. It's not their wedding. Obviously, they know the people.
Yeah.
Wine runs out, which has got to be a huge problem.
Yeah.
And
maybe an embarrassment to the host family.
Yeah. So the mom turns to her son and says, "There's no wine left." And I see her taking this problem that isn't his, boom.
Probably isn't hers.
Yeah, and not hers, right? Yeah, and she's injecting herself in.
Yep.
And basically saying, "Fix it."
Right.
And Jesus coming back like any kid. "Well, this isn't my problem.
Yeah.
What do you mean?"
A 30-plus-year-old kid, right?
Yeah, why are you dumping this on me? Yeah. And then, of course, my time has not yet come.
Yeah.
But he's right there.
Yeah.
And then her doing what a good Jewish mother would do, totally ignoring his comments, going to the servants and say, "Whatever he needs, do it."
Any mother. I mean, any mother, right? It doesn't even, and Middle Eastern, get all the stereotypes, but just any mom. It's like, I'm on this track.
Right. Right. So you took it more as, he'd go out and buy wine.
Yeah, go get some or something.
Yeah, figure it out. I kind of take it more is, you're saying your time has not come. All your life, I've heard these things, pondered these things. If not now, when?
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know what she expected him to do. He had never done a miracle. John said that this was the first of his miracles. Right. So I don't know that she was expecting a miracle. She wasn't expecting water into wine.
Maybe she was. Right.
Mother's intuition.
It's the Christmas season.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I had from a thing to look out for.
Yeah.
How about you with Mary?
Well,
and I know I took way too long. So.
Well, no, I mean, Mary's like the biggest part of the story. If you're talking about any voice, right, any individual or group, whatever, Mary definitely has the most. We're gonna have to find things for the other videos.
Yeah. Right.
Right. One of the things I like when I think about Mary is she. In the timeline that you gave us, right? Elizabeth is 6 months along. Mary gets the visit from Gabriel, the angel, and she leaves Nazareth, goes down toward Jerusalem, and hangs out for 3 months with Elizabeth, right? So they're relatives somehow. We're not quite sure.
Right. We always say cousins.
That's because that's the older translation. Yeah. But we know that they're from different tribes. Okay, Luke 1 tells us specifically that both Zechariah and Elizabeth were part of Aaron's family. They were Levites.
Right.
Both Joseph and Mary were from the tribe of Judah.
Right.
So there's been some intermarrying somewhere along the line that makes them relatives, but not. I mean, it's not like it was my, my dad's sister's kid or something like that. Probably. So when she leaves, she's just going to help out her relative. Right? Get through the next 3 months and the childbirth and everything, which she did. But that means when she finally gets back to Nazareth, she's probably 4 months along, maybe 4 or 5 months along.
Yeah, start showing.
She's showing, right? Because I'm sure that she didn't leave right when John was born, right? She was helping. There's 8 days before the circumcision, 40 days to the purification, whatever, right? So she's probably 4 or 5 months along. Last time she was seen in Nazareth,
she had a flat stomach.
Yeah, she was this little beanpole, whatever she was. Now she's showing she can't hide it. It's there, right? And what's her story?
Right. How does she explain it?
How does she explain it to her family and then Joseph?
Right.
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 And we'll get
Joseph,
into this.
we have at least an angel visited.
Right, and we'll get into that in Joseph's story a little bit. But the only thing she could say was, "The Holy Spirit did it. God did it. It's a miracle." Okay, you weren't like this when you left.
Right.
Right. But the angel told me. The angel told me.
And the penalty is death. Or could be death.
Could be.
Right.
Now, we know that the Jews were not allowed to put people to death under the Roman Empire, which is why, even though Joseph had that under the Mosaic law, he was just going to divorce her, because that was an option as well. And we'll see that in his story more. But she's greatly favored and blessed and all this stuff, and yet, for the rest of her life, she is known as the one who had this baby out of wedlock, and Joseph, for whatever reason, decided to marry her anyway, even though he shouldn't have, from a human perspective.
Right.
To the point that we get to John chapter 8, and Jesus is talking about his father, and you are of your father, the devil, to the Pharisees, and at least we know who our father is.
Yeah.
We were not the ones born out of immorality. So 3 decades later, this is thrown back in Jesus' face, and she's got to carry this.
Right.
This whole time.
Right.
From the very
he would have had to.
Right.
Too.
From the very beginning, she's had to. We look at the Christmas story. Oh, the Virgin conceived, and what a wonderful thing. It wasn't a wonderful thing.
Right. Yeah, from the human standpoint.
From their standpoint, it was not wonderful. She had to carry this stigma for the rest of her life.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. And you come back with, that's why the angel had to visit. That's why the shepherds had to say these things. That's why there was the positive affirmations from Anna and Simeon, who had never seen her before.
Yep. God was building in for her all of this. And as a younger, mid-teen, say a mid-teen, 14, 15, 16 maybe, who knows, right? As a mid-teen, we know today how a single teen mom, what she has to go through, right? Imagine in that culture where it was not just frowned upon, but completely unaccepted.
Right. Well, I think it is part of she knew what she was signing up for, but did she really know? Because she did say, let it be done.
Yeah, well, I'm not.
There was agreement.
So now you've got some. Now you got some theology. Is if she would have said, "Oh no, I don't want this," would God have said, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll pick somebody else." You know. So you've got some of that to navigate.
Right.
But like you said, her spiritual maturity, her thoughtfulness, all the stuff that you brought out, leads into that, and yet God repeatedly, especially in the first couple of weeks and months, and whatever. Just kept bringing one affirmation after another for her that this, okay, all right. And I think that's why she grabbed this stuff, pondered it, thought it over so carefully and thoughtfully, and hid it there because she was going to need it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
One day she's going to be standing at the cross.
Right.
And everything that she thought she knew from 30 plus years ago, that the kingdom was coming and he was Messiah and all this stuff. What happened to that?
Yep. Yeah, because from her standpoint, she didn't see it.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, as we go into the Christmas season, as we think of and think of these voices that are going to be coming up, and some that are very popular, we've heard their voices many, many times over the years, and some are, a little bit quieter. That we'll be talking about during our Sunday messages. Let's not forget the humanity. Let's not forget the real people going through the real things. We come into Christmas and it's supposed to be joyful and, we're sharing and family and all that. I mean,
But it was life, and life is messy.
Yeah, the first family of Christmas was really, really bad from a human standpoint. You know, did her parents disown her? You know, Joseph was ready to, and it took an angel to say don't. Did he marry her prematurely? Obviously, he married her soon enough that they were already married before Jesus was born. So he wasn't ready to move that quickly, maybe. But, you know, he stepped up, and we'll talk about that later. But the first family of Christmas is not as prepackaged and wrapped up with a bow as sometimes we like to make it.
Yeah, but it kind of helps us in our lives, too, because we're... Yep. As much as we want to be perfect.
Yep.
We're not close either.
Yep. So hopefully that's helpful as we think about these things.
Right.
You know, she has a very loud voice for somebody who's very quiet.
Yeah.
And her life speaks to us even today. And I think that's really cool.
I do. Yeah.
So next week we'll come back with another video, and I think we'll be talking about Joseph. We might as well just just stay with the first family.
Yep, exactly.
Right? So we'll talk about Joseph and maybe some things that you've thought of, you haven't thought of. In the meantime, as you're reading through this Christmas story, we encourage you, read through it slowly. Don't just, blow past it. Oh, we've read this before. Think through these things. Be thoughtful like Mary. Ponder them in your heart. And as we come through the Christmas season, share your thoughts and comments. We always love reading and hearing your comments about these videos. And so we'll be here next week again, talking about Joseph as we work through some of these voices of Christmas. See you then.